Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to Spiritual Journey. So, I want to talk about the nation of the Ukraine today. And I just want to let you know that I'm not an electional astrologer. I do dabble a bit though. And so I wanted to look into the chart of this country and find out what potentials are or possibilities are coming up for this country. It's strictly an astrological viewpoint. I don't have any military experience. I don't have any history of the Ukraine or its people, really. I do have a couple friends that are from the Ukraine. I'm not biased in any way in relation to specific countries. I do, however, believe that Russia attacked the Ukraine unprovoked. So that's kind of where I'm coming from personally. So this country of Ukraine, according to Astro Databank, was born on August 24th, 1991 at 6 p.m. in the city of Kiev, Ukraine. They have a Virgo sun at 00 degrees of Virgo, 57 minutes, and a moon at 22 degrees Aquarius, 23 minutes. The sun is situated in the 7th house of allies and partnerships and close ties, and the moon is in the 1st house of the nation's identity. So the ascendant in this chart is extremely important simply because the moon is in the 1st house. And this ascendant rides at 16 degrees of Capricorn, 33 minutes. So this gives the country a very seriously committed relationship with their own appearance to the rest of the world. That certainly this is a hardworking country. It seems like it's a bit isolated from the rest of the world in many ways, and it's going to have to work really hard, as it has, in order to find its identity and its position in relation to the rest of the world. This is a proud nation, and who upon its conception really seeks to advance itself or move itself forward, especially in business. And in control of its own affairs. So it wants to run itself. It wants to be independent pretty much at all costs. However, the attainment of this recognition from the rest of the world, because Capricorn is there, takes a long time. And so the country has to mature and age before it will possibly get the recognition that it needs, unfortunately. So this Capricorn ascendant also produces restrictions or rules that lay in its path, obstacles, before it can achieve its objectives. So this is going to take them longer, and it's going to take them longer to convince the world that it is a responsible nation. So there's lots that need to be proven with this country. And certainly it has really strived for that over the last 20 years, 30 years. So Neptune is also in the ascendant, and that kind of doubles down on this lack of clarity that the Ukraine nation is perceived by the rest of the world. So there's a little bit of what you could say with Neptune there, a little bit of suspicion and that they don't really know what they represent or who they represent. And so this has really clouded a lot of the perceptions that perhaps the rest of the world had of this country. So other countries and they don't see them clearly, and sometimes the Neptune on the ascendant can actually kind of make the country disappear in certain ways. And so it could indicate that various countries lie to them. But it also can indicate that various countries lie about them. And so they spin tales that certainly are not true, especially with those in positions of power. So it's a real mystery that surrounds the reflection of the Ukraine outwards. And perhaps many believed some of these suspicions and this lack of clarity that the Ukraine is reflecting. So indeed, now, especially now with Jupiter in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces, you really get this, that the Ukraine could possibly have no borders, that they have no limitations around their country. Because of the influence of Neptune and Pisces. So this country does appear to be very strong, though, and resilient and determined to maintain control at all cost. So the North Node is also very close to the ascendant, looking for opportunities. This country looked to advance themselves in the business world. And perhaps some of those doors opened for them. This North Node pushes them to rise above themselves and rise above whatever challenges that need to take place so they can achieve their goals. And so they want to do business with the rest of the world. They want to be part of the rest of the world. And yes, the North Node assists this. And so that aids them. The North Node aids them. Saturn in the chart is a pivotal planet because it rules the ascendant and for the country in its direction. And so it's located in the first house. It's very close to the North Node. So there's that real push to advance, open up possibilities, and to get where it's going through hard work, dedication, and credibility to build their reputation. So this is a good position for the North Node. And Saturn is right there in the first house. Saturn resides at the first degree of Aquarius, which is a really good position. Saturn is slow, methodical, and governed. So they don't take risks. They don't want to take risks. They want to protect what they have, and they want to build slowly. Its rise in the world will take effort and diligence, and it eventually will get there through struggle and perseverance on its way up. It's interesting because Saturn is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is this sign of liberation and independence, but it is also democracy. So this country is really striving for democratic rights, and it stands on those belief systems. It stands on that. It's going to do it through patience. It wants to be part of the rest of the world who are democratic. And so there is nothing shady or deceptive about all of this Capricorn energy and Saturn, and there is nothing about that which would indicate that Neptune and that influence of suspicion and susceptibility. They are susceptible. So this country seeks stability. It prides itself on free market democracy, ideologies. It wants fair opportunity, the same as every other country. And it wants solid agreements. It doesn't want the wishy-washy, but it probably gets wishy-washy and hesitancy from other leaders. Saturn in Aquarius certainly seeks fairness for all its people. And when this planet is triggered, it has a ripple effect out to humanity because Aquarius encompasses the whole world. And so, and we're seeing that now, that this energy is certainly being triggered, and there is that large group that has rippled out. So part of the reason with that is that Saturn is so close to the 00 degrees of Aquarius that Jupiter and Saturn connected to on December 20th of 2020, which was a point and position that dawned a new era. And this was also a position that said we are moving into a new 200-year cycle, a new 20-year cycle, and a new 800-year cycle. So that is vitally important, and Saturn is sitting right on top of that. So it was at that time that this country experienced their first Saturn return. And so that would have engaged this country astrologically into the participation of the dawning of the new era. And so when we see this big connection to that energy, certainly they are going to be one of the countries that is certainly going to play a role in that transformation and change. So the country, according to astrology, began to experience a rebirth heading into 2016 as Pluto crossed their ascendant. This would have indicated change was at hand and that they were ready to transform and restructure their identity outward to the face of the world. Significant changes began to manifest, and they sought for more control over their identity, their business world, and what they wanted to produce. So there would have been lots of change, regenerational energy, the emergence of crumbling old ideologies, and really, it started to change the face of this nation in how they perceive themselves. So this could have brought also a shift of power and direction and a shift of control. And so Pluto still remains in the first house and will continue to transform these countries' reflection outward. However, Pluto in the first house is also a very violent planet, or can be very violent, and it represents bombs, atomic bombs, and so you get this real destructive kind of force that can build but also tear down the structures because Pluto is in Capricorn. And it really represents leadership and perhaps the destruction of the leadership of the Ukraine when it is challenged. And it is being challenged now. Pluto is being challenged now with Mars and Venus. And he has been challenged quite a bit through Venus's retrograde station as well. So this is really powerful, and it is endless. It does indicate endless perseverance, endless determination. This is a I'm not giving up kind of energy that will certainly assist the Ukrainian nation to defend itself. So they also experienced Saturn return, crossing their ascendant in 2019, and this indicated a rebuilding, a restructuring, like really cleaning up their country and looking at their infrastructures and their roadways and their bridges and everything. And so they really most likely began to really feel more confident during this time and to start to build a country that is credible in business, and looking for outside contracts. And certainly the square, Saturn square to Uranus in 2021 has put a lot of pressure on them, perhaps to join the UN. They want to change here, but they really struggled to achieve that. Perhaps they wanted more trade deals and they wanted more connections in business to advance their country. And so some of the energy that transpired in 2021 could have actually unexpectedly closed doors to some of those avenues of business for them and their economic situation. Saturn in transit signals their first Saturn return as a country, as this planet headed into Aquarius in April of 2020. So this produced additional responsibility, or that the country took on additional goals and further advanced their purpose. This is a country that was growing up at this point. This is a country that was saying, we can handle our own affairs. We can look after ourselves. So we are responsible people. And so that probably was a pivotal point in not only their leadership, but also a pivotal point in, we can handle this. We're going to look after this. Saturn returns add responsibility. So no doubt there was some added responsibility here for this country. So like I said, this country, because of all this influence of Capricorn, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter and Saturn coming together in December of 2020, just when they had their first Saturn return. And perhaps, unfortunately, they may lead us into the new era because of all this energy. And that they will bear a great sacrifice, actually, because they do believe in such transformation and change to occur in the world. They want to see themselves as independent and vital to the rest of the world. So the maturity with this country and Neptune on the ascendant sometimes gives this country a lack of direction. And it really can appear to the outside world that they don't know what the Ukraine is all about. They don't know what their intentions are. And Neptune can be really liberating in many ways. It can make this country have big dreams, big visions for the future, big opportunities can come about if this is triggered in a positive way. However, it can also indicate the lies, the deception that people peering in are making up about them, and they have trouble getting through that cloak or that veil. So there is a great deal of pressure building in the country heading into 2022, and there was. The Saturn return indicates a struggle to maintain course sometimes. There's added responsibility, maturing, there's additional obligations, there are obstacles and hurdles that have to be contended with. So this country could feel at this point in time isolated, alone in many ways because of the Capricorn, and that they have to protect their position in this country and the country by themselves. So that doesn't mean there's not outside help coming in. It means that the actual country itself and the people within the country have to do it themselves. They have to stand up. And so that can be difficult. Then you have this Neptune that is very good for spy work and stuff like that, mysteries and the way perhaps they're fighting, which they're there 1 minute, gone the next, which will probably work to their advantage in defending their country. So Neptune is very vast energy. And it spreads everywhere. It just spreads everywhere. So others perhaps don't see the reality here and the potential, because Neptune is of great faith, and great faith also can move mountains, right? So Neptune here certainly will give them a vast restore of faith and angelic guidance. So that is good. The moon rests at 22 degrees of Aquarius, and the people certainly want liberation. They want independence. This position indicates the people are sympathetic to their fellow countrymen. Even though they're distant, their countrymen mean a lot to them, and they are connected to them. They are friendly people, but they're aloof, they're suspicious, and they appear to be distant. So most likely others view them as different. And sometimes we are too judgmental, right, with that Capricorn ascendant. And so at all cost, the people of the Ukraine need their freedom and involvement in their affairs. Saturn in transit, unfortunately, is going to hit this moon several times in 2022. That means that the moon is stationary in a natal chart and that Saturn will come at times. So this is a signature of depression, harsh conditions arising, and it signals limitations and a great deal of pressures of brain, an emotional withdrawing perhaps of reality in many ways, right? It's a sad connection, but it can produce. And so there are limitations, there are rules, there's isolation, there's feelings of abandonment, and they will have to do all the heavy lifting. They have a great challenge before them with Saturn collide people as well, right? And these great to lose so much with this Saturn. It hides their and can take and cohesiveness. But the Neptune thing on the, so the moon invading attacks, really what that square indicates. So Saturn in transit squares this Pluto on the MC. So there's pressure here, pressure on the people. They're going to really, and Venus, they little point that arises. And this approaching aspect is triggered in April. And so it's uh, pushing right through to the end of July. The power is given back to them because Scorpio is there. And that they are included in the United Nations. They are included. There's a change of status that comes about very quickly. So this could also signal and drives this real dislocation, which is even happening now because of the other aspects and Saturn approaching, but Uranus and Pluto really represent a real